The sky above planet Varex 9 cracked open like glass. Flames tore across the atmosphere as the human colony ship Glintre broke through the clouds, one engine on fire. Sparks flew. Alarms screamed inside the ship. Passengers held onto their seats as metal groaned and twisted. The pilot yelled, "Brace for impact!" But the voice was drowned by the roar of the dying engines. Commander Triva of the Elleran Defense Corps stood at the window. Her dark purple eyes narrowed as she saw the green jungle rising fast. She grabbed a rail to steady herself. Around her, alien officers shouted orders in different languages. The colony ship carried mixed species, humans, Ellerans, Turok engineers, and more. Over 200 souls on board. And one of them was dangerous. Not because of rank, not because of weapons, but because of what he could do without them. The crash landed harder than expected. Trees snapped like twigs, rocks shattered. The rear end of the ship tore away, sliding across mud and stone before slamming into a cliff. Fire burst from the engine core. Smoke blackened the sky. Hours passed. Survivors slowly woke up, coughing and bleeding. Medical drones buzzed to life. A few emergency bots pulled bodies from the wreck. Commander Triva crawled out of the wreckage, her right arm hanging useless at her side. Blood ran down her neck, but her eyes searched for one person. "Mason," she whispered. "Not Captain. Not soldier. Just Mason." He was sitting alone near the edge of the jungle, calm as stone, legs crossed, hands resting on his knees. Dirt covered his face. Blood stained his shirt. But his eyes were clear. No fear. He had no visible weapon. Just a small survival pack and what looked like a broken shovel. When Triva limped closer, he looked at her and nodded once. "You okay?" She stared at him. "We crashed. I noticed. You didn't even come to the command area to help." "I did," Mason said. "I pulled 6 people out, then left." "Why?" He looked into the jungle. "Something's watching." She turned fast. The jungle around them was thick, huge red vines, green trees with glowing blue leaves, and shadows that moved too easily. But she saw nothing, still. Her instinct screamed. "How do you know?" she asked. "I just do." Mason stood up slowly. He stretched his arms, rolled his shoulders, then knelt to tighten his boots. Every move was calm, measured, no wasted energy. Triva had trained her whole life in combat. She was the youngest elite in Elleran military history. But watching him move gave her chills. She hated that feeling. Hours later, they gathered all survivors at the broken front section of the ship. Only 64 made it. The rest were either dead or missing. Triva took command, standing on a tilted metal platform. "This planet is hostile," she said. "No comes. No rescue for at least 12 days. We must stay together. Build shelter. Assign guard shifts." Someone shouted from the back. "With what?" "We lost the armory." Mason stepped forward and said nothing. Just dropped a pile of sharpened sticks, stone blades, and metal scraps at her feet. Triva blinked. "Where did you?" He pointed at the wreckage. "Tools are everywhere if you stop crying and start thinking." A large, armored alien named Kareen stepped toward Mason, growling. "Who do you think you are, human? Giving orders?" Mason didn't answer. He just looked at Karen's hands. "You have claws," Mason sighed. "Use them to dig fire pits, not your mouth." Karen raised a fist to punch, but stopped. Mason hadn't moved. But something in his stare froze Karen in place. The big alien stepped back without a fight. Triva saw it all. And something inside her shifted. That night, they made fires. Small camps formed. Drones flew above, scanning the dark. But the scanners glitched. The planet had strange magnetic storms. Visibility was poor. Triva kept patrol with 2 guards while others tried to sleep. Suddenly, a loud snap echoed from the trees. One of the drones dropped, sparking, then another, then silence. The guards raised their weapons, eyes wide. Triva whispered. Hold positions. But the jungle moved. Not wind. Something heavy. A massive beast stepped from the trees. 10 feet tall. Muscles like armor. Eyes glowing orange. Skin like black iron. It roared a sound like metal breaking bones and charged. The guards fired energy bolts. Useless. The beast didn't even flinch. It struck one guard, sending him flying 10 meters. Another tried to run. Too late. Triva leapt into action, blade drawn. She landed a hit on the creature's shoulder, but it barely scratched. The monster slammed her into the dirt. Her head rang. She couldn't move. Then Mason stepped in front of it. No armor, no gun, just bare hands. He didn't yell. He didn't run. He didn't even blink. The beast roared again and charged. Mason waited. Then, at the last second, he sidestepped. His hand grabbed the beast's arm mid-swing, twisted it, and used the creature's own speed to slam it into a tree. The tree cracked. Beast rose fast, angrier. It tried to bite him. Mason ducked, punched its jaw once. A sharp crack echoed. The beast stumbled, shook its head. Mason grabbed a rock, leapt onto the creature's back, and slammed the rock into its skull again, and again. Blood sprayed. 3 more hits. The beast collapsed. Dead. Everyone was silent. No one moved. Triva sat up slowly, eyes wide, watching Mason step off the corpse. He tossed the bloodied rock aside like it was nothing. She whispered, "How did you?" He looked down at her, breathing steady. "I told you something was watching." He held out a hand. She took it. He helped her up like she weighed nothing. Behind them, the other survivors stared in shock. Mason walked away. No thanks needed. Triva watched him disappear into the dark jungle again, and for the first time in her life, she felt fear. Not of him, but for him. The next morning, no one questioned Mason. When he spoke, others listened. When he asked for tasks, they obeyed. Even Karen, the proud fighter, handed him water without a word. But Triva noticed something else. Mason never took more than he needed. Never bragged. Never smiled. He slept little. He always watched the trees. As if he was waiting for something worse. Something only he believed was coming. Later that day, a young alien child came running. Something's moving in the East Forest. Triva gathered a team, but Mason was already moving. They followed. What they found wasn't another beast. It was a symbol, clawed into the trees. Deep, precise, unnatural. Mason stared at it for a long time, then touched it. His jaw tightened. Triva asked, "You recognize it?" He nodded. "It's a warning." "From what?" He looked into the jungle and said 2 words, "Not beasts." As night fell again, the fires burned higher. Everyone stayed closer. Mason sat alone again, cleaning his hands with a torn cloth. Triva approached. "What are you really?" He glanced at her. "You saw what I did." "Yes, but I don't understand." "How?" He shrugged. "I trained on a planet where bare hands were all we had." "Which planet?" "Earth." Triva tilted her head. "Earth doesn't train like that." He looked away. "Not anymore." She sat beside him, close. The night was quiet for a moment. Triva whispered, "When you stood between me and that monster." Mason said nothing. She continued, "I felt something I've never felt in battle." He looked at her. She said quietly, "Safe." Mason didn't smile, but his eyes softened for a moment. Then he stood up, grabbed his shovel, and said, "We'll need traps tomorrow. Bigger ones." And he vanished into the dark again. That night, she couldn't sleep, not because of fear, but because of the way he moved, the way he fought, and the way he didn't brag after killing a monster with nothing but a rock in his hands. She had met thousands of warriors, but none like Mason. And somewhere deep in her heart, a question echoed louder than the jungle's silence. Who is this man? The morning after the beast attack was silent. Too silent. No birds, no buzzing insects. Even the wind had stopped moving the jungle leaves. Triva woke early. Her arm still ached from the hit she took. But it wasn't the pain that bothered her. Was the man she had watched the night before. Mason. She found him again near the edge of camp, building traps from tree vines, sharp stones, and metal scraps. He didn't look tired, though he hadn't slept more than 2 hours. "Those are snare loops," she said, walking over. He nodded. "Big enough to catch something human-sized." She frowned. "You think humans will attack us?" He didn't. Answer. Later that day, 3 alien scientists from the medical unit approached Triva. "We want to examine him," one of them said. "His vitals, his speed, his strength. None of it makes sense." Triva crossed her arms. "He saved your lives last night." "We know. That's why we want to understand how." She hesitated. "Don't treat him like a lab animal." The second scientist, a short, feathered being, spoke softly. "Commander. He fought a Class 4 predator with his bare hands, and won. He broke its skull with a rock. If we can understand his biology, maybe we can help protect the rest of us." Triva looked across the clearing. Mason stood in sunlight, sharpening a stick, calm and focused. She sighed. "Ask him. If he says yes, you can run your tests." They approached Mason carefully, carrying scanning tools. "Can we take a few scans?" the feathered alien asked. Politely, Mason looked at them. "Scans for what?" "Basic vitals. Reflex speed. Neural activity. It will help us understand how you survived the attack." He stared at them for a long time, then nodded. "Fine, but no injections, no drugs, no blood." "Agreed." He followed them inside the half-destroyed medbay, where power flickered and sparks jumped from the broken walls. The scanner bed still worked. Mason lay down. His eyes never stopped moving. Watching. Always watching. 2 hours later, Triva entered the medbay. The scientist looked confused, disturbed. "What did you find?" she asked. The lead medic looked up slowly. "His muscle density is twice the Ellerin average, but that's not the strange part." "Then what is?" The scientist pointed at a neural scan. "He moves faster than our scanners can record. His reaction speed is beyond standard combat enhancements." "Even without tech implants?" Triva blinked. "That's not possible." The medic zoomed in on the brainwave readings. "There's more. His brain suppresses fear responses. Not fully, but enough that he doesn't freeze, even under extreme stress." She frowned. "Are you saying he's fearless?" "No, worse, he feels fear. But he's learned to use it." That night, Mason sat at the fire, alone again. Triva sat across from him. "They say your body doesn't work like a normal human." He didn't look up. "It doesn't. Why?" He rubbed his hands together. "Training, pain. That doesn't explain how you broke a creature's jaw with one punch." Mason looked at her then. His voice was quiet. "When I was 13, I lived underground. No parents, only gangs. You either fought or you died." She listened silently. "I trained in a place where if you screamed, they hit you harder. If you cried, they laughed. So I stopped doing both." Triva whispered. "And you think that made you stronger?" Mason looked into the fire. "No, it made me harder. Strength is different." The next day, Triva called for a group sparring session. She wanted to test Mason in front of others formally. Not to humiliate, but to understand. 10 elite fighters stood in a ring, alien guards. Human security. One cybernetic soldier with a damaged leg brace. Mason stood barefoot in the center, arms folded. Triva raised a hand. "This is non-lethal, controlled force only." She looked at Mason. "You ready?" He nodded once. "Let's get this over with." The first challenger stepped in. A tall warrior with energy gloves. He lunged. Mason dodged. No punch. No counter. Just a light trip. The fighter hit the ground. Second one charged. Same result. Third tried a surprise. Grab. He landed face first in the dirt. By the sixth opponent. The watchers stopped cheering. They stared. Mason never struck with full force. He only moved fluid, exact, cold. Like he'd done this 1,000 times. Treva stepped forward. I'll go next. The circle went silent. Mason raised an eyebrow. You sure? Yes. They faced each other. Treva attacked fast 2 jabs, a low sweep. Mason blocked both. Dodged a sweep. Didn't hit back. She pressed harder. He spun behind her, twisted her arm gently, and held it in place. No pain, no injury. But total control. She gasped. He let go. Treva stood still for a second, breathing hard. Then nodded. I've fought warlords, she said. None moved like you. He said nothing. Later that evening, someone sabotaged the food storage. It wasn't an accident. The security footage showed static, then nothing. A breach. Treva ordered a camp-wide check. Mason moved silently through the wreckage. He picked up a single footprint, slightly melted from heat. Stealth boots, he muttered. She raised an eyebrow. You've seen this before? He nodded. On bounty hunters. You think someone's after you. Mason didn't answer. He just walked to the edge of camp again. Looking into the trees. At midnight, a figure entered the med bay. Dark clothes. Masked face. Plasma knife. He moved toward the storage locker, then paused. Mason stepped from the shadows behind him. I thought you'd come back, he whispered. The intruder spun, knife raised. Too slow. Mason struck his wrist, disarming him. Then grabbed the intruder's throat and pinned him against the wall. Who sent you? The figure gasped. Mason pressed harder. The helmet cracked. Treva and 2 guards ran in. Stop! Mason dropped the intruder at their feet. Beneath the broken mask was a face no one expected. One of the engineers. A human. In interrogation. The man gave little. He only said one thing. You don't understand what he is. Treva leaned forward. What is he? The prisoner looked her in the eyes. He's a weapon that remembers. And weapons like him. Should stay buried. Mason stood outside the cell, listening. He didn't flinch. He just turned and walked. Away. Later, Treva found him in the jungle again. She followed him through thick vines and fog until they reached a small clearing. There, Mason had carved marks into the tree trunks, symbols, circles, patterns. What is this? She asked. Memories, he said. Of the people I failed to protect. You were a soldier? No, worse. I was a tool. She stepped closer. And now? He looked at her. Now I protect who I can. They sat together under a tree. Treva asked softly, Why don't you sleep much? He looked at the stars. Because I dream of screams. She didn't know what to say. So she placed her hand on his for a second, then stood up. You're not alone anymore. He didn't look at her. But his hand stayed where hers had been. Back. At camp, one of the medics ran out with new results. Commander, you need to see this. She returned to the med bay. The latest scan showed Mason's nervous system reacting before the simulation started. It's like his body knows what's coming, the medic said. It's pre-instinct, something we've never seen. Treva stared at the screen. And whispered, He's not just fast. He's already ahead. That night, a storm hit. Winds tore across the jungle. Tents flew. Trees fell. In the chaos, something moved again. This time it wasn't a beast. It was voices. Whispers in an unknown tongue. Dozens of them. Treva ran to the control tent. The radios screamed with static, then a phrase repeated. He is awake. She turned to Mason. He was already moving, grabbing a rope, a knife. A single flare. I need to go alone, he said. Why? She asked. Because whatever's coming, they're here for me. She stepped in front of him. Double quotes. No, not this time. Their eyes met. Then she said firmly, We face this together. Mason hesitated. Then nodded. They vanished into the storm. Together, 2 figures lit only by lightning. One born to fight, the other Built for it. And far in the jungle, something ancient was rising again. Waiting. Watching. Hunting. The storm had passed, but the silence it left behind was worse. Smoke still rose from the damaged colony site. Trees were broken, shelters destroyed. Survivors worked to repair what they could. But they weren't alone anymore. 3 massive ships hovered above the jungle canopy, not human, not friendly. And on the side of each ship glowed a mark feared. Across galaxies, the Iron Claws, a ruthless warrior clan, mercenaries, killers, enforcers of forgotten wars. Their leader was called Varnuk the Shatterer. His name alone made battle-hardened captains shiver. Treva stared at the ships and whispered, "Why are they here?" Mason stood next to her, silent. He already knew an armored skiff descended from the lead ship, landing with a heavy thud on the soft jungle ground. From it stepped Varnuk himself, 8 feet tall, covered in spiked armor made from bones and black steel. His face was hidden behind a war mask, and his voice echoed like thunder. "Who fights for this camp?" He roared. No one answered. He laughed. "Then you will all be crushed." Treva stepped forward. "We are not invaders. This is a colony rescue ship. We crashed." Varnuk's eyes locked onto her. "Irrelevant. This world is under Iron Claw control. We mean no harm." Varnuk pulled a giant hammer from his back. "Then offer tribute. 1 champion. 1 battle. 1 chance." Treva whispered to the crowd behind her. "This is how the Iron Claws operate. They don't want blood. They want fear. 1 duel, then they leave. Or kill us all," someone muttered. She turned to Mason. "I'll fight." "But..." He shook his head. "No, you're not who they came for." She narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean?" "I've seen their tactics," Mason said. "They don't care about dominance. They care about spectacle." He stepped forward. "I'll fight." Gasps filled the camp. Even Varnuk tilted his head. "You? A human? Bare-handed?" Mason didn't reply. He simply removed his shirt and stepped into the dirt circle the Iron Claws carved into the ground. His skin showed old scars, cuts, burns, broken bones long healed. Not pretty, but real. Varnuk laughed. "Good. We welcome foolish bravery." A second Iron Claw stepped forward from the shadows. This one was even bigger than Varnuk, covered in thick gray armor, claws longer than Treva's forearm. "This is Grovuk," Varnuk said. "He eats metal." Mason didn't blink. "I chew rocks," he replied. The Iron Claws formed a circle, roaring in rhythm. The jungle echoed with the sound of steel on steel. The arena was ready. Treva watched from behind the line, heart pounding. She wanted to stop this, but she knew she couldn't. Mason stepped into the ring. Grovuk followed, dragging a chain behind him. Varnuk raised his fist. "Begin." Grovuk charged like a tank, swinging the chain high. Mason waited. Then ducked, low rolling under the first strike. The chain smashed a tree trunk in half behind him. He grabbed a fistful of dirt and threw it at Grovuk's face. The warrior roared, blinded for a second. Mason used the moment. 3 quick strikes to the ribs. A knee to the leg joint. Then he jumped back. Grovuk didn't fall, but he felt it. The crowd howled. Treva's fists were tight. She couldn't look away. Every move Mason made was sharp, clean, deliberate. Grovuk came back swinging. His claws tore through the air. 1 swipe nicked Mason's side. Blood. But Mason didn't stop. He moved closer. Too close for claws. He slammed his elbow into Grovuk's throat, then kicked the back of his knee. The giant stumbled. Mason grabbed the chain, wrapped it around Grovuk's arm. Pulled. Hard. Metal groaned. Bones snapped. Grovuk screamed. Varnuk leaned forward. The other Iron Claws were silent now. Reva felt it too. This wasn't just a fight. This was history. Mason dodged another wild claw and jumped onto Grovuk's back. Using the chain, He locked it around the warrior's neck and pulled back with all his strength. Grovek slammed backwards, trying to crush Mason. Too late. The chain tightened. 1 second. 2. Loud crack. The huge warrior fell forward with a thud. UNMOV, I need. The crowd went silent. Varnock stood up. Mason climbed off the body, covered in sweat and blood, breathing hard but still on his feet. Do you yield? Mason asked. Varnock looked down at his fallen warrior, then raised both arms. The iron claws. Respect this human. A thunderous roar erupted, not of anger, but of honor. After the match, Treva ran to Mason. You could have been killed, but I wasn't. You fought like something wild, not trained. Mason looked her in the eye. That is my training. She didn't know what to say. She just stared at the man who defeated a monster. Again. With no weapon. And realized something strange. She was afraid for him, not of him. That night, Varnock himself came to the campfire. He removed his war mask, revealing an aged face with silver skin and old battle scars. He sat across from Mason. You fight like those from the ancient days, Varnock said. Before honor became code, before war became a show. Mason didn't answer. Varnock pulled a knife from his belt and placed it between them. A gift, a weapon for a warrior. Mason stared at it. Then pushed it back. I already have weapons. He held up his fists. Varnock chuckled. Then you are more dangerous than I thought. Before leaving, he turned to Treva. You are lucky to follow him. His path leads to legend. Then the iron claws returned to their ships, carrying their wounded, leaving no threat behind. For the next 2 days, the survivors rebuilt their camp. No attacks came. No more beasts. No more hunters. But everyone looked at Mason differently now, with awe. With fear, and with something else. Hope. Reva met Mason near the jungle again. He was washing blood from his arms in a small stream. She said, You didn't have to fight. Yes, I did. Why? He looked at her. Because they needed to believe in something. She hesitated, then asked, Do you believe in anything? Mason stood up. I believe in protecting those who can't protect themselves. Then he looked at her, and for the first time, his voice softened. And maybe in someone who sees me as more than just a weapon. She held his gaze and didn't look away. That night, they sat together under a broken star map from the wrecked ship. Above them, stars burned quietly. Treva leaned closer. When this mission is over, what will you do? Mason replied. Depends. On what? He didn't answer right away. Then he said, On who's still with me. She smiled. For the first time. But far in the jungle, deep underground, something else had awakened. A shadow. An echo. It had seen the fight, and it remembered Mason's name, not as a hero, but as an unfinished mission. The jungle was quiet again, but quiet didn't mean safe. After the fight in the Iron Claws arena, the camp had changed. People looked at Mason with new eyes. He was no longer just a survivor. He was a symbol, a protector. Maybe even more. But to Treva, he was still a puzzle. One that didn't fit into any of her training, records, or logic. And she wasn't the only one asking questions. The science officer, Dr. Velen, called Treva into the medbay the next morning. The medbay was half-functional, patched together with old panels and wire. He's something else, Velen said. We've tested speed, strength, even heat resistance. It's all above human standard. I know, Treva replied. But now I want to go deeper. She narrowed her eyes. How deep? Velen activated a small round device, the neural link. It's normally used to train pilots. Shows how the brain reacts under pressure. Can simulate combat, fear, death, but it also records. Treva looked at the glowing disc. You want to use this on Mason? Velen nodded. We'll ask first. He's not a test subject. But if he agrees, maybe we'll finally understand what drives him. Treva approached Mason near the stream where he was fixing a broken sensor beacon. His shirt was off again, revealing new bruises from the iron claw fight. He moved like he didn't feel them. She crouched nearby. Velen wants to run a neural simulation. Mason didn't stop working. Why? To understand you. He paused. I don't think they'll like what they find. She said softly, maybe they need to see it anyway. Mason finally looked up. Fine, one time, no repeats. Inside the medbay, Mason sat in the scanner chair. Wires were placed around his head. The neural link disc floated just above his skull, glowing softly. This won't hurt, Velen said. Just reliving memories and reactions. I've lived through worse, Mason replied. The lights dimmed. The link activated Dot and the room fell silent. Treva watched from behind the glass wall. The first images flickered on the screen. Mason's brainwaves, memory pulses and digital echoes of his past. The jungle disappeared. A city appeared, broken. Buildings, fire, screams. Children running, explosions, gunshots. Mason, what is this? Velen whispered. He didn't respond. His body stayed still, but inside his mind, he was running. A small version of Mason, a teenage boy, was dragging the girl behind him through a war-torn street. Her leg was bleeding. They hid behind a burning truck. Stay quiet, young Mason said. If they hear us, a shout. A soldier appeared. Mason leapt forward with a metal rod. 3 hits. The soldier fell. The girl cried. Mason didn't. The memory shifted. Now Mason was older. 17. Fighting in a metal cage. No crowd. No cheers. Only food at stake. Every fight won meant one meal. Every loss meant hunger, or worse. Treva's throat tightened. Velen whispered. He's not just trained. He was forced. Another shift. Now adult Mason stood in a hallway. 6 dead bodies around him. His face was blank. Bloody. Then came the voice, from behind him. Low. Cold. Mechanical. Very good. Subject 12. You are ready. Treva stepped forward. Pause it. Velen froze the feed. What? Rewind. Play that voice again. They played it, and her blood ran cold. She had heard that voice before. It belonged to a company that trained soldiers in secret. They called them Ghost. Weapons. Mason wasn't just strong. He was one of them. The simulation continued. Now Mason stood in a lab, strapped to a table, doctors around him. Your heart rate adapts faster than expected, reflexes beyond standard. He survives. Pain spikes, increase again. Electric shocks ran through his body, but he didn't scream. He just stared at the ceiling. Then, the simulation glitched. The screen showed white static. Velen tapped the controls. What's happening? Suddenly, a new memory began, but this one wasn't chosen by the machine. It was hidden. A locked memory, a dark room. One single chair. Mason sat in it, crying silently. Opposite him, a figure in shadows. The voice returned. You failed your mission. She died. No, Mason whispered. The voice repeated. She died because of you. Treva watched the screen, heart pounding. Who's she? She asked. The machine zoomed in. A name appeared in the memory tag. Lena, Mason's sister. The screen flashed again. The memory changed one final time. Now Mason stood alone in a burning building, holding a child in his arms. His face was calm. His hands were shaking. He looked up at a mirror and saw something behind him, himself. But different, colder. The other Mason said, You're not a hero. You're a weapon pretending to be human. Then everything went black. The simulation ended. The neural link powered down. Mason opened his eyes slowly. His voice was flat. Now you've seen it. Treva couldn't speak. Neither could Velen. Mason stood up. Don't run it again. He walked out without another word. Outside, the wind was rising again. Treva followed him. You weren't born to fight, were you? No one is, Mason replied. Some of us just never had a choice. She stood beside him. Your sister? She died when I was 13. I couldn't save her. I was too weak. So I made sure I'd never be weak again. He sat on a rock and looked at the sky. They tried to erase my past. Lock away the memories. Make me something cold. But they failed. She sat next to him. You feel things. I saw it in your eyes. I feel too much. That's the problem. They stayed there, saying nothing. Then a voice crackled from her wrist. Come, Commander, we've got movement. Southeast Ridge. She stood. Scanners? No visuals. Just something big. Mason's eyes narrowed. He picked up a broken spear shaft. I'll go. You're not going alone. I won't stop you, he said. She smiled. Good, because I'm not stopping. They reached the ridge 20 minutes later. Everything was quiet, but something was wrong, too. Wrong. Then they saw it. A strange figure, tall, armored, glowing faint blue. Not Iron Claw, not any known species. It spoke in a cold voice. You carry Forbidden's code. Mason stepped forward. Who are you? I am Retrieval Unit 9. You are Subject 12. Treva raised her weapon. He's not yours. But the figure ignored her. It raised an arm. Mason yelled, Move! A blast hit the ground between them, sending dirt flying. Mason charged the figure. Hand to hand again, this time. The enemy matched him. Strike for strike. Speed. For speed, Treva fired, but the bullets bounced. Mason took a hit to the chest and fell. The figure stepped forward. You are broken. Return for reset. Mason grabbed a rock and smashed the figure's knee joint. It staggered. Treva leapt and stabbed its back. The figure hissed, turned to smoke, and vanished. Breathing hard, she knelt beside Mason. He coughed but smiled weakly. Well, that was new. She held his hand. You're more than a weapon. He looked at her, voice low. I want to believe that. You should, because I do. Back at camp, Velen reviewed the broken signal left by the attacker. He looked up. Pale. Double quotes, Commander. That thing wasn't alien. It was human tech. Very old. Very illegal. What does that mean? It means someone still owns Subject 12. And they were coming to take him back. Far across the stars. In a hidden station, a voice whispered from the shadows. Prepare the others. He remembers. We must collect the asset. The night was thick with tension. The jungle was darker than ever, the air heavy with silence and fear. Campfires flickered weakly, casting long shadows across the faces of the survivors. Everyone knew the Iron Claws had left, but something worse was coming. Treva stood on a small hill overlooking the camp. Her eyes searched the stars, but her mind was fixed on Mason, the man who had saved them time and time again, yet still carried a past no one fully understood. Suddenly, her cum buzzed sharply. Commander, came a voice, low and urgent. Sensors detect a ship approaching fast. Unknown origin. Treva's heart jumped. Prepare for contact, she ordered. And alert Mason. Minutes later, the ship landed in a clearing nearby. Its hull was scratched and worn, but its presence screamed power. Out stepped a tall, slender figure in a dark uniform. His face was sharp, cold, and completely unreadable. 2 guards flanked him armed, alert, and merciless. Treva met the man at the edge of camp. I am Commander Relentless, he said smoothly. I come on behalf of the Coalition. We are here for Subject 12. Treva's jaw tightened. He's under our protection, Relentless smiled thinly. Protection? No. You are holding an asset. A weapon. And the Coalition wants him back. Mason stepped forward from the shadows. Subject 12 doesn't belong to anyone. Relentless raised an eyebrow. Bold words for a fugitive. Mason said nothing. Treva crossed her arms. What is this? A prisoner exchange? Relentless nodded. Correct, we will trade. One of your own for Subject 12. Who? You'll find out soon enough. Inside the makeshift council tent, the survivors gathered anxiously. Triva explained the situation. Relas laid down a hologram. Your scientist, Dr. Velen. He is a valuable prisoner. We offer his release in exchange for... Mason. Gasps filled the room. Velen looked pale but calm. This is madness, Triva said. We cannot just hand him over. Then prepare for war, Relas said coldly. We won't leave without our asset. That night, Mason walked alone by the river. Triva joined him. You don't want to be taken back. Mason's gaze was distant. They made me what I am. But I'm not their slave anymore, she nodded. Then you fight. He smiled faintly. I was made to survive. But now, I want to live. The next morning, the exchange began. Both sides met at the border of the jungle, a flat clearing marked with ancient stones. Relas stood with his guards. Triva with her survivors. Velen was brought forward, escorted by 2 medics. A tense silence fell. Bring Subject 12, Relas ordered. From the trees, Mason appeared. Bare-handed, calm. Remember, Triva warned. If this goes wrong, there's no turning back. Relas smiled again. We're civilized. But the moment Mason stepped closer, gunfire erupted. Chaos exploded. Relas' guards opened fire. Survivors ducked for cover. Mason rolled behind a tree and sprinted toward Relas. The man was quick, but Mason was quicker. He dodged a blast and slammed into Relas with a powerful shoulder strike. The fight was brutal but fast. Mason grabbed Relas' weapon and threw it away. Triva led her people, fighting off the guards. Karen and the others showed their true strength. They fought like wild beasts, but with discipline. Slowly, the tide turned. The jungle echoed with shouts, gunfire, and the clash of metal. Mason pinned Relas to the ground. Why hunt me? Mason demanded. Relas laughed bitterly. Because you are the future. A weapon no one can control. Mason's eyes burned. I control myself. Suddenly, Relas pressed a hidden button on his belt. A piercing sound filled the air. Mason's body convulsed. Pain exploded in his head. He dropped to his knees, clutching his temples. Triva rushed to his side. What is that? Relas smirked. A neural disruptor, designed to incapacitate even the strongest. Mason gritted his teeth but stayed conscious. Not enough, he said through clenched teeth. The disruptor's effect faded slowly. Mason stood, trembling but alive. He looked at Relas. This ends now. With a roar, Mason charged. Relas fired wildly but missed. Mason closed the distance and knocked Relas out cold with one punch. The fight ended. Relas' guards surrendered. Triva ordered them bound and secured. The survivors cheered. But Triva's eyes were on Mason. She asked quietly, Are you okay? Mason wiped sweat from his face. Better than ever. Later in the camp, Triva and Mason talked quietly. Why did they want you so badly? She asked. Mason looked away. Because I'm more than a soldier. I'm a symbol. A weapon they tried to build perfect. But you chose your own path. Yes. And that path led you here. He nodded. That night, stars shone bright. Mason and Triva sat by the fire. He looked at her and said softly, I fought with my hands, but I fight now for something bigger. Triva smiled. Then fight with me. Mason took her hand. Together, they stared into the flames, ready for whatever came next. But deep in the shadows of space, a dark ship moved closer. Its mission was clear. The hunt was not over. The stars were bright and cold. Far above the jungle planet, a dark ship moved silently through the void. It was sleek and black, almost invisible against the vast emptiness of space. Inside, the ship's bridge buzzed with quiet energy. Commander. Raxus stood by the window, watching the planet below. We've lost the asset, he said, voice low and angry. A figure stepped forward. Subject 12 escaped. Again, Raxus clenched his fists. Find him. The crew moved quickly. activating sensors and scanning the dense jungle. Back on the planet, the survivors rebuilt. The camp was alive with movement, repairs, training, planning. Treva stood with Mason, watching the sun rise through the trees. "We're not safe," she said. Mason nodded. "They won't stop coming." Treva's eyes hardened. "Then we fight." That evening, scouts reported strange activity in the jungle. "Tracks," said Karen, the camp's best tracker. "Too many. Moving fast." Treva gathered her team. "We prepare for attack." Mason cleaned his weapons. He looked at Treva. "We need a plan." She smiled. "I thought you'd never ask." The next day, they set traps around the camp, spikes hidden in the dirt, nets hanging from trees, explosives disguised as rocks. Mason trained the fighters. "Move fast. Hit hard. Don't let them surround us." Treva joined him. Together, they showed strength. The camp felt alive again. Deep in the jungle, shadows moved, silent, deadly. The enemy was coming. Suddenly, alarms blared. "Attack!" The jungle exploded with gunfire and screams. Iron Claw's mercenaries, joined by unknown soldiers, poured from the trees. The survivors fought bravely. Mason led the charge. Barehanded, he fought like a wild beast. Punches landed. Bones cracked. Enemies fell. Treva coordinated the defense. "Hold the line. Protect the medbay." Explosions rocked the camp. A mercenary sniper aimed at Mason. Before the shot fired, Mason dove behind a tree. The bullet struck the bark inches from his head. In the chaos, Mason saw a figure in black armor moving toward the command tent. He sprinted after. The figure turned a cybernetic soldier. Eyes glowing red. They clashed. Steel met flesh. The fight was brutal. Mason took a blow to the ribs but didn't stop. He slammed the soldier to the ground. Back at the camp, Treva fought off attackers. She saw Velen trapped under debris. With help, she freed him. "We need to retreat," Velen said urgently. "No," Treva replied. "We fight to the last breath." The battle raged on. Mason and the cyber soldier circled each other. Then, the soldier activated a hidden blade. Mason blocked, then countered with a powerful punch. The soldier staggered. Mason grabbed the blade and twisted it free. With one final strike, he knocked the soldier unconscious. As the attackers fell back, Treva shouted, "Hold! They're retreating." The survivors cheered but stayed alert. Mason helped Treva to her feet. "We need to find out who sent them," she said. Mason nodded. "We're dealing with something bigger than we thought." That night, Mason and Treva reviewed captured communications. "Encrypted," Velen said. "I'll try to decode." Treva said. Hours passed. Finally, the message became clear. "Subject 12 is key. Return him at all costs. Mission will succeed only with his capture." Mason looked away. "This is not just about me." Treva placed a hand on his shoulder. "We fight together." He smiled faintly. "Together." The next morning, scouts spotted a new ship landing nearby. This one was bigger, heavily armed. A dark symbol marked its hull, the Shadow. Syndicate, enemies from the stars, the survivors. Prepared. Mason trained the fighters harder than ever. "We don't just survive. We win." Treva watched him. She knew the fight was far from over, but with Mason, hope burned brighter. The stars above seemed to watch, silent witnesses to a battle that could change everything. The jungle was tense and quiet. The survivors knew this was the moment. The final battle was coming. Every face was set with determination. Every weapon was ready. Treva stood tall, looking over her people. Mason was beside her, calm but alert. "This is it," she said softly. Mason nodded. "We fight or we die." The Shadow Syndicate ship loomed over the camp. Dark and massive. Its engines hummed like a beast, ready to roar. From it came waves of soldiers, armored, ruthless, and merciless. Treva raised her voice. "Hold your ground. Protect the camp." The first wave attacked. Bullets and energy blasts tore through the air. Mason fought in the middle, bare-handed and fearless. His fists moved like lightning. Enemies fell one by one. Triva directed the fighters, sending them where needed. She saw Karen fighting beside a group of survivors. Explosions rocked the ground. The enemy was strong, but the survivors were stronger. Suddenly, a loud crash. The ground shook. A massive war machine appeared, stomping through the trees. Its metal limbs crushed everything. Triva shouted, "Focus fire! Take it down!" Mason saw the machine and charged. Dodging laser beams, he climbed onto the giant robot. Using every skill, he smashed control panels and wires. The machine faltered. With one final punch, Mason shattered its core. The machine collapsed. In sparks and smoke, the battle was fierce, but the survivors fought with heart. Slowly, the enemy began to fall back. Then from the shadows, a new threat appeared. A soldier in advanced armor stepped forward. It was Raxus. "Subject 12, he called. Out. Mason turned. "This ends now." They fought fiercely. Mason's strength and speed met Raxus's technology and skill. The jungle echoed with the sounds of battle. Triva and the fighters rushed to help Mason. Together, they overwhelmed Raxus. Finally, Mason pinned him. "Tell me why," Mason demanded. Raxus smiled darkly. "Because you are the key to power. They want control." Mason looked at Triva. "We're not their tools." With a final blow, Mason knocked Raxus unconscious. The enemy retreated. The survivors cheered. The camp was safe for now. Triva looked at Mason. "You saved us." He smiled. "We saved each other." That night by the fire, Mason spoke quietly. "I fought to survive, but now I fight for something more." Triva took his hand. Together, above them, the stars shone brightly. A new day was coming, one filled with hope.